Okay, so Night of Champions. Ironically, going into this evening, if you didn't watch SmackDown, two titles were not being defended. The IC title and the US title. The US title ended up being defended. It was Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler. Again, pretty solid match. Much better than the match they had on SmackDown, with, of course, Dean Ambrose retaining. But Curtis Axel didn't have a match. So they gave him a match against Kofi Kingston. All in all, pretty solid match. With Axel, of course, getting the victory. But that's okay, because in the elimination tag match that was then called No Disqualification, CM Punk made Curtis Axel tap. Which then meant CM Punk was filling his hands on Paul Heyman unless a new Heyman guy was going to show up. And the new Heyman guy did show up. Big guy. Burly guy. Who's not really great at talking. Doesn't have a lot of hair. Huge and white. Ryback. So ironically now, when Ryback was a face, he was very dominant when he was taking on CM Punk, when Punk had Heyman in his corner. Now Punk gets to take on Ryback with Heyman in his corner. Decent. It's a nice way to keep that feud kind of going, and to pretty much also kind of keep... Oh, I'm so far. Okay. Also a way to kind of keep that feud somewhat kind of going until the power just flicker where I'm at. Miz took on Fandango. Miz won with the figure 3 3/4. Rob Van Dam actually defeated Alberto Del Rio. However, he beat him by DQ. Therefore, titles did not change hands. Big shock. It did end with Rob Van Dam hitting the Van Terminator? Is it the Van? I think it's the Van Terminator, which would be the drop kick with the chair. Yeah. He hit one of his kicks when he used the chair. I know he had like the Van Daminator, the Van Terminator, depending on where the opponent was located at. I haven't seen enough of his matches in a long time. He almost never gets to use that move in the E, so if I misquoted for that, I'm sorry. Natalya got to hit a double sharpshooter on the other Bella and Naomi, which left her wide open for the Black Widow to sneak in, and she tapped. So Natalya tapped to AJ, AJ retained. If you're noticing a pattern here, pretty much the titles have not changed hands. When it came to the tag team tournament, I should write this down. 3MB started off taking on Tons of Funk. Ironically now, Brodus Clay has what looks like Stegosaurus plates on his back. Looks really weird, like the pieces of duct tape. Tons of Funk were successful. They then took on the Real Americans. Real Americans then defeated Tons of Funk. Real Americans then took on the Usos. Usos lost to the Real Americans. Primetime Players came down. Primetime Players pretty much beat, by this time, it was a third match for the Real Americans. They get their match with the Shield. Decent match, nice back and forth. Shield is victorious. As of right now, not a single title has changed hands. And now we're into Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton. If you thought the match Daniel Bryan put on with John Cena was impressive, the match he put on with Orton was even better. These two guys have got some chemistry from their earlier, essentially, 3-match thing they had going on earlier in the year to what they actually have now. They do a really fantastic job. And I do like the fact that Daniel Bryan is throwing the spider suplex. That is his, essentially, back suplex, where he keeps his legs on the top rope, then rolls himself up to hit the headbutt. It's nice. It works well. And how did he beat Randy Orton? With that sick running knee to the head. And then 1, 2, 3. You have a new WWE champion. So people who thought that Triple H was just going to undeniably bury Daniel Bryan. And then, of course, that 1 month, he became probably one of the most sympathetic characters in the E, with pretty much everybody actually behind him, because he is a legitimate wrestler. And And then he has a great match in his second main event in a row. So it's one of the very few times there's been a main event match at a pay-per-view where John Cena's name has not been in it. And it was Orton and Daniel Bryan. Great match, solid match. Daniel Bryan has absolutely earned this run with the title, even though it'll probably be somewhat short-lived.